The cargo hauler Morning Star floated quietly in the asteroid belt between Mars and Jupiter. It was a Tuesday night, and the ship's 43 crew members were finally getting some rest after a long week of mining operations. The hallways were dim, set to night mode, and most families had already gone to bed. Captain Jake Cooper walked down the narrow corridor toward his quarters, his boots making soft thuds against the metal floor. He'd just come off a 12-hour shift checking the mining equipment and making sure everything was secure for the night. His body ached, but he smiled when he reached his daughter's room. Beth was already in her pajamas, clutching her worn stuffed bear that she'd had since she was 3. She was 8 now, but that bear still went everywhere with her. "Dad, can you tell me about Earth again?" she asked, her eyes bright with curiosity. Jake sat on the edge of her bed and began describing the blue oceans and green forests that he'd left behind 15 years ago. Beth had been born in space and had never seen Earth's surface. She listened intently, asking questions about rain and birds and what grass felt like under your feet. "Someday, sweetheart, we'll take a trip back home," Jake promised, kissing her forehead. "You'll see it all yourself." "Promise?" Beth held up her pinky finger. "Promise?" Jake linked his pinky with hers, then tucked the blankets around her shoulders. "Now get some sleep. Tomorrow's a school day, remember?" Beth groaned but closed her eyes. Jake turned off the light and stepped into the hallway. His wife Karen was in their quarters, probably already asleep. He was looking forward to joining her when the alarms suddenly blared through the entire ship. The sound was deafening. Red emergency lights flashed in every corridor. Jake's training kicked in immediately. He sprinted toward the bridge, his heart pounding in his chest. In 15 years of working in space, he'd never heard the attack alarm. Asteroid collisions, equipment failures, medical emergencies. Yes. But never this. "All hands to stations. We've got unknown vessels approaching fast." The intercom crackled with his first officer's voice. Jake was halfway to the bridge when the ship shuddered violently. Strange ships had appeared out of nowhere, surrounding the Morning Star like wolves circling prey. He could see them through the windows, sleek, dark vessels that looked nothing like any human or known alien design. Before Jake could reach the weapons locker, a wave of blue energy swept through the corridor. It hit him like a physical wall and his muscles stopped working instantly. He crashed to the floor, unable to move anything except his eyes. The stun pulse had paralyzed everyone on board. Through the doorway, Jake watched in horror as the airlock doors were forced open. Creatures in heavy armor poured into his ship. They moved with military precision, clearly having done this many times before. Their armor was gray and black, and their faces were hidden behind helmets with glowing visors. Jake heard screaming from the residential section. His mind screamed at his body to move, to fight, to do something, but he was completely helpless. Tears ran down his frozen face as he heard Beth crying out for him. "Daddy? Daddy, help." He watched the aliens drag his crew members past him. Karen stumbled by, her hands bound, a bruise forming on her cheek. She was crying. Behind her, 2 aliens carried Beth, who was kicking and reaching toward Jake with desperate hands. "Daddy?" Her voice broke his heart into a million pieces. The lead alien paused near Jake's paralyzed body. A mechanical voice spoke through a translator device. 47 specimens secured. Excellent yield. These primitives will fetch premium prices in the markets. Children especially valuable. Jake wanted to scream, to rage, to tear them apart with his bare hands. But he couldn't even blink. The aliens loaded his crew into their ships like cargo. Within minutes, they were gone, disappearing into quantum fold space as suddenly as they'd appeared. The paralysis lasted for hours. Jake lay on the cold floor, staring at the ceiling, replaying Beth's screams over and over in his mind. When he finally could move his fingers, then his arms, he dragged himself to the communications console. It was destroyed. Everything was destroyed. Emergency responders from Mars Station arrived 6 hours later. They found Jake sitting in the wreckage of his bridge, surrounded by damaged equipment and scattered belongings. His hands were bleeding from where he tried to manually repair the communication system. A young lieutenant named Amy knelt beside him, her expression serious. "Captain Cooper, we need to get you to medical." "My crew," Jake's voice was hoarse. "My daughter. My wife. They took 47 people." "We know, sir. We received 4 seconds of your distress signal before they jammed you. Command got the message." Jake grabbed her arm, his grip desperate. "When are they sending the negotiation team? When do we start talking to these things?" The lieutenant's face hardened. Her eyes turned cold as ice. "Sir, Admiral William Grant received your distress call personally. He's not sending negotiators. He's mobilizing the Third Fleet. All of it. Jake stared at her, not understanding. Sir, humans don't negotiate when they take our children. We don't bargain. We don't discuss terms. She stood up, helping Jake to his feet. Admiral Grant's orders were clear. Find every human taken in this raid. And eliminate everyone responsible. Across the solar system, from Earth to the Mars colonies to the Jupiter stations, humanity began preparing for war. Not a rescue mission. Not a diplomatic solution. War. The exchange was a massive space station that floated in neutral territory, far from any government's control. It was the size of a small moon, with docking bays that could hold hundreds of ships at once. Neon lights flickered across its surface, advertising everything from weapons to rare minerals to things that most civilized worlds preferred not to think about. Inside the station's upper levels, in a luxurious office with windows overlooking the docking rings, Syndicate leader Vree sat behind his desk reviewing his latest acquisition. The holographic display showed 47 humans, their images captured during processing. He tapped his clawed fingers together, pleased with his crew's work. The adults are strong, he muttered to himself, zooming in on the male specimens. Good bone structure. High endurance ratings. The labor colonies near the outer rim will pay well for these. He scrolled to the children's images, and his eyes gleamed with greed. Beth Cooper's terrified face stared out from the screen. Vree had been in the kidnapping business for 30 years and he knew the market well. Young ones always brought the highest prices. Wealthy collectors across the galaxy loved having exotic pets from primitive worlds. 22 younglings, he said with satisfaction. This is an exceptional haul. Vree opened his standard ransom template, the same message he'd sent to hundreds of species over the decades. He filled in the blanks. Demand for advanced technology, mining rights in their system, and a guarantee that humanity would never interfere with Velic operations again. Simple. Straightforward. Every species eventually paid because war was expensive and embarrassing. These humans barely have a space military, Vree chuckled to his assistant. Their databases show mostly mining ships and cargo haulers. They'll pay within a week. He sent the message and leaned back in his chair, already calculating his profit margins. The response came back faster than expected, only 30 hours later. Vree opened it casually, expecting to see desperate human leaders begging for their people's return. Instead, his screen showed a single human male. The man had gray hair and a face that looked like it had been carved from stone. He wore a black military uniform with medals across his chest. His eyes were cold and steady as he stared directly into the camera. When he spoke, his voice was quiet, almost gentle, which somehow made it more terrifying. I am Admiral William Grant of the United Earth Defense Force. You are holding 47 human beings. You have 48 hours to return every single one of them, unharmed, to the coordinates I'm sending you now. This is not a negotiation. This is not a discussion. This is your only warning. The message ended. Vree stared at the blank screen for a moment, then burst out laughing. His assistant joined in nervously. A warning? From them? Vree replayed the message for his senior captains and they all laughed together. The humans had no dreadnought-class warships. Their fleet was scattered across their small solar system. They were nobodies in galactic politics. Send them our demands again, Vree ordered. Add an extra 10% for wasting my time with threats. He waited for the humans to accept reality. That's when things started going wrong. 12 hours after Admiral Grant's message, the Velic outpost at Proxima went silent. Vree tried to contact them. Nothing. He sent another ship to investigate. That ship never reported back either. No distress calls. No wreckage. Just silence like the station had never existed. Equipment malfunction, Vree told himself, but his hands were shaking slightly as he typed the report. Then another outpost went dark. Then another. Within 2 days, 5 Velic facilities had simply vanished. No one saw what happened. No survivors escaped to tell the story. Vree stopped laughing. Halfway across the galaxy, Captain Diana Pierce stood on the bridge of the UEDF stealth destroyer Revenant. Her ship was unlike anything the galactic community knew humans possessed. It could fold space without the usual energy signatures. It could fire weapons while cloaked. And it carried a crew that had spent 2 years preparing for exactly this scenario. Diana and her team had infiltrated criminal networks, learned trafficking routes, and identified every major player in the galactic slave trade. They'd been waiting for an excuse to act. Now they had one. Her boarding team had just captured a Velic transport ship. The alien crew was bound and secured in the cargo hold. Diana walked slowly toward one of them, a mid-level trafficker who was trembling in his restraints. "Where are you taking our people?" Diana asked. Her voice was flat, emotionless. The Velik babbled in his own language. The translator converted his panicked words. "I don't know. I just fly the route. Please, I have younglings of my own." "Answer the question," Diana said coldly. The alien broke. He gave her everything: coordinates, facility names, buyer contacts, payment schedules, every piece of information his terrified mind could remember. Diana's tactical officer, Lieutenant Chris Bennett, recorded it all. "Ma'am, we've got 7 more Velik ships in this sector," Chris reported, checking his scanner. Diana looked at the captured alien one more time, then turned to her weapons officer. "Destroy them. All of them." "Ma'am, 3 of those ships are showing civilian transponders. They're Velik Syndicate vessels in our operational zone," Diana interrupted. "Destroy them. Leave 1 escape pod functional." The Revenant's weapons systems came online. Within an hour, 7 Velik ships were nothing but debris floating in space. Diana recorded a message and uploaded it to the single surviving escape pod before launching it toward the exchange. The message was simple: "Tell Vree we're coming. Tell him we're bringing friends. Tell him that humans don't negotiate." When Vree received that escape pod and played the message, he finally understood his mistake. These weren't primitives. These were predators. And he'd just taken their children. 5 days after the first Velik outpost went silent, Syndicate leader Vree sat in his office surrounded by damage reports. The numbers made his stomach turn. 30 ships destroyed. 4 major stations wiped out. 217 of his personnel dead or missing. And the humans weren't slowing down, they were getting faster, more aggressive, more coordinated. Every time Vree sent reinforcements to defend a facility, the humans would hit somewhere else. They appeared out of nowhere, struck with overwhelming force, and vanished before his counterattack could arrive. It was like fighting ghosts. Deadly, merciless ghosts that knew exactly where to hit. "How are they doing this?" Vree demanded, slamming his fist on the desk. "They're supposed to be primitive. Their intelligence said they barely had a military." His chief of security pulled up a hologram showing the latest attack. "Sir, their ships use technology we've never seen before. They can fold space without leaving the normal energy signatures. Our sensors can't track them until they're already firing." Vree felt real fear for the first time in his long career. He'd kidnapped people from dozens of worlds and none had ever responded like this. Most species filed complaints with the Galactic Council, paid the ransom, and moved on. But humans? They were hunting his people like animals. In desperation, Vree sent an emergency petition to the Galactic Council. He claimed that human military actions violated at least 12 interstellar treaties. He argued that their attacks on neutral stations endangered innocent species. He demanded that the Council force humanity to cease their aggression and follow proper diplomatic channels. The Council, always concerned with maintaining order, sent an official message to Earth. It was formal and stern, demanding that humanity show restraint and respect galactic law. They threatened sanctions and diplomatic isolation if the attacks continued. Admiral William Grant's response was broadcast publicly across every communication channel in known space. He appeared on screen in his military uniform, standing on the bridge of his flagship. Behind him, dozens of warships could be seen through the windows. "To the Galactic Council," Grant said, his voice clear and firm. "We received your message. Here is our response. We didn't sign your treaties. We don't recognize your authority over human affairs. And we will not stop until every single one of our people comes home safely." He paused, letting his words sink in. "The Velik Syndicate kidnapped our civilians, including 22 children. They plan to sell them as slaves and pets. If your laws protect kidnappers, then your laws mean nothing to us. We'll be finished when our people are free. Not before." The transmission ended. The Galactic Council was outraged, but they didn't send fleets to stop humanity. They just sent more strongly worded messages that nobody on Earth bothered to read. On Station Theta, a Velik breeding facility hidden in a remote asteroid field, guards walked their patrol routes with nervous energy. They'd heard what happened to other facilities. Some guards had already deserted, fleeing into unknown space rather than face the humans. Greg Patterson crouched in the ventilation shaft above the main corridor, watching the guards through his thermal scope. He led Strike Team 7, 12 of the best soldiers Earth had ever trained. They'd spent the last 4 hours infiltrating the station, moving through maintenance tunnels and air ducts like silent shadows. "Team report," Greg whispered into his comm. "Alpha position secure," came the first response. "Beta in position," another voice confirmed. "Charlie ready," the third team leader reported. Greg switched his visor to thermal vision and scanned the facility's lower levels. The computer showed 42 heat signatures in the detention area. 8 of them were small, children's sizes. His jaw clenched. This was the place. Execute on my mark, Greg ordered. 3, 2, 1, a mark. Strike Team 7 moved like a well-oiled machine. They dropped from ventilation shafts and emerged from maintenance corridors simultaneously. The Velic guards never had a chance to raise an alarm. Stun rounds dropped them instantly, their bodies crumpling to the floor before they could reach their weapons. Greg's team reached the detention level within minutes. The cells were marked with alien writing, but his translator decoded them: labor stock, medical processing, premium specimens reserved. That last one made Greg's blood boil. He blasted the lock off and pushed the door open. Inside he found Karen Cooper hugging her daughter Beth tightly. The little girl's face was streaked with tears, but her eyes widened with hope when she saw the Earth Defense Force insignia on Greg's armor. "Ma'am, we're United Earth Defense Force," Greg said gently, kneeling to their level. "We're here to take you home." Karen's voice shook as she spoke. "Jake? My husband?" "Captain Cooper survived the attack," Greg assured her, cutting through their restraints with a plasma torch. "He's waiting for you on Mars. He never stopped looking for you." Beth threw her arms around Greg's neck, sobbing with relief. He picked her up carefully, speaking softly. "You're safe now, sweetheart. Nobody's going to hurt you again. I promise." While Greg's team secured the captives, his second-in-command, Lieutenant Jennifer Hayes, worked at the facility's main computer terminal. Her fingers flew across the alien keyboard as she downloaded everything: transaction records, buyer lists, shipping routes, financial accounts, communications logs. Every piece of data that could lead them to the other missing humans and everyone involved in this operation. "Got it all," Jennifer reported, ejecting the data core and securing it in her pack. "This intel is going to break their entire network." "Good," Greg replied. "Set the charges. 30-second delay. Let's get our people out of here." The rescue team moved quickly, guiding the freed captives through the corridors toward their extraction point. Behind them, explosive charges planted throughout the facility began their countdown. The Velic guards who'd been stunned would wake up eventually, but by then the station would be nothing but scrap metal floating in space. As Greg's ship pulled away with all 42 rescued humans aboard, Station Theta erupted in brilliant flashes of light. The facility that had processed thousands of kidnapped beings over the years was gone in seconds. Greg watched through the viewport as debris scattered into the void, then turned to check on the rescued civilians. They were scared, traumatized, but alive. That's what mattered. "Command, this is Strike Team 7, Greg reported. "Package secured. 42 souls coming home." The hunt was far from over. Vree was running out of options. His syndicate was collapsing around him. Every day brought news of another facility destroyed, another ship lost, another group of his people dead. The humans were relentless and nothing he did could stop them. In his desperation he made the worst decision of his life. He ordered his guards to bring one of the human prisoners to his office. They dragged in a young man in his early 20s. His name was Tommy Hayes. He had bruises on his face and his hands were bound, but his eyes showed no fear, only defiance. Vree set up cameras and broadcast on every known communication frequency. He wanted the whole galaxy to see this. He wanted the humans to understand that he still had power. "Humans of Earth," Vree announced to the cameras, his voice trying to sound authoritative despite the tremor underneath. "You will cease all military actions immediately. You will withdraw your forces. Or your species will die one by one, starting with this one." Tommy knelt on the floor, his face bruised but his gaze steady. He looked directly into the camera, knowing his family might be watching somewhere. His voice was hoarse but clear. "Don't stop," Tommy said firmly. "Don't you dare stop. Whatever it costs, you finish this. You make sure no one else." Vree cut the transmission. The screen went black across the galaxy. 4 hours later, Tommy Hayes was dead. Admiral William Grant stood on the bridge of the Thunderhead, Earth's newest and most powerful supercarrier. The ship was massive, bristling with weapons that most species didn't know humans had developed. Through the massive viewport, he could see the rest of his fleet assembling: 300 warships, the largest military force humanity had ever gathered in one place. Behind the Admiral, Captain and Rivera worked at the tactical display, her fingers moving rapidly across the holographic interface. She was marking every Velic asset in known space: stations, ships, supply routes, everything. "Admiral," Anne reported, her voice professionally steady though her hands were clenched tight. Intelligence confirms we've located all 47 original captives. 6 are deceased, sir. Grant's jaw muscles tightened. When? Tommy Hayes was executed 4 hours ago. The others died during processing or transport over the past week. The bridge fell silent. Every officer present felt the weight of those words. 6 people they couldn't save. 6 families who would never be whole again. Grant took a deep breath, then turned to his communications officer. Open a channel. Broadcast to the exchange on all frequencies. Channel open, sir. Grant's voice was cold as ice. Vree of the Velik Syndicate, you have murdered our people. You have tortured children. There is no negotiation now. There is no mercy. There is no surrender we'll accept. We are coming for you, and we will not stop until every single Velik facility is reduced to ash and every person involved in this operation faces justice. You have 2 hours to release the remaining captives unharmed. After that, we take them by force. He nodded to his fleet commander. All ships prepare for quantum fold jump. Destination, the exchange. 300 human warships disappeared from normal space in flashes of light. When they emerged above the exchange, alarms screamed across the massive station. The Velik Defense Force scrambled into action. 200 warships launching from docking bays, taking defensive positions around the station. A Velik commander opened communications, his voice frantic. Human fleet, you are in neutral territory. Under galactic warfare protocols, you must declare your intentions and allow for. Protocol this, Admiral Grant interrupted, and the Thunderhead opened fire. The battle that followed shocked every species watching on long-range sensors. Human ships moved with perfect coordination, like a single organism with 300 deadly parts. Their weapons hit harder than anything the Velik had faced before. Their shields held against attacks that should have destroyed them. When Velik ships tried to run, Earth's destroyers hunted them down with ruthless efficiency. When they surrendered, human marines boarded and tore through every compartment searching for captives. If no humans were found aboard, the ships were left as burning wrecks. No prisoners taken. No mercy shown. The exchange's defensive batteries fired desperately at the human fleet, but it was like throwing rocks at a hurricane. One by one, the Velik warships fell. The station's shields collapsed under sustained bombardment. Commander Brian Foster led the final assault team through the breached hull of the exchange's central spire. His marines moved through smoke-filled corridors, stepping over Velik guards who'd been too slow to run. They followed the intelligence to the luxury detention cells where the highest-value captives were kept. They found the remaining 5 humans there. Karen and Beth Cooper were among them, along with 3 miners from the Morning Star. All were alive but terrified, huddled in the corner of an ornate cell that looked more like a showroom than a prison. United Earth Defense Force, Brian announced, cutting their restraints. You're going home. Beth's eyes filled with tears. Is my dad okay? Your father is waiting for you, Brian assured her. He's been searching for you every single day. While his team evacuated the captives, Brian's squad moved deeper into the spire. They found Vree in his office, surrounded by luxury that had been bought with the suffering of countless beings. The syndicate leader had his hands raised, already talking about trials and legal proceedings and galactic law. Brian looked at the data pad showing Tommy Hayes' execution. He looked at the records of 6 dead humans. He looked at the frightened faces of the children they'd rescued. Then he looked back at Vree. You murdered Tommy Hayes, Brian said quietly. You terrorized children. You sold people like property. I demand a proper trial, Vree insisted. Under galactic law, I have rights. Justice already arrived, Brian interrupted. What happened next took 3 minutes. When Brian's team emerged from that office, Vree wasn't with them. The exchange burned behind them as the rescue ships carried the freed humans home. The Galactic Council's emergency session was chaos. The massive chamber, built to hold representatives from 500 species, buzzed with angry voices speaking in dozens of languages. Holographic displays showed the burning wreckage of the exchange, Velik ships torn apart, and casualty reports scrolling endlessly. The Council Prime, a towering insectoid being from the Centauri system, slammed its appendage against the podium, demanding order. We must address this crisis immediately. The human military actions have violated 17 interstellar treaties, destroyed a neutral trading station, and killed thousands without any form of due process or trial. A delegate from the Vorten Empire gestured wildly with its tentacles. They entered sovereign space without permission. They attacked civilian vessels. This is barbarism. Humans must be sanctioned immediately, another voice called out. They cannot be allowed to simply ignore galactic law. Ambassador Nicole Hart stood in the center of the chamber, representing Earth. She was a former military officer herself, chosen specifically because she wouldn't be intimidated by the spectacle. As the accusations flew around her, she remained perfectly calm, her hands clasped behind her back, waiting. Finally, the Council Prime addressed her directly. Ambassador Hart, the charges against humanity are severe. What does Earth have to say in its defense? Nicole took a step forward, her voice clear and steady. Defense? We're not offering a defense, Council Prime. You're absolutely right about everything you said. The chamber fell silent, confused by her response. We violated your treaties, Nicole continued. We destroyed your neutral station. We killed without asking your permission first. And I'll tell you something else, we'd do it all again tomorrow if someone took our people. The chamber erupted in outrage. Delegates shouted over each other, demanding Earth be expelled, sanctioned, isolated. Nicole waited for the noise to die down, then spoke again, her voice cutting through the chaos. For centuries, you've built a civilization on rules that protect kidnappers more than victims. You created neutral zones where criminals can operate freely as long as they pay the right bribes. You made treaties that value order and stability over justice and protection. That system worked fine for you because you chose to accept it. She activated a holographic display that filled the chamber's central space. Names, faces, and worlds appeared, thousands of them. These are the species who purchased humans from the Velik Syndicate. These are the worlds where our people were sold as slaves and pets. We recovered this data from the exchange before we destroyed it. The delegates stared at the display, many recognizing names from their own governments or allied systems. Over the next 6 months, Earth will visit each of these worlds personally, Nicole announced. They can return any humans they're holding peacefully, and we'll leave without incident. Or they can refuse and they'll share the Velik Syndicate's fate. Your council can condemn us. You can sanction us. You can even declare war if you want. None of it will stop us. A delegate from Alpha Centauri stood up, all 4 of its arms gesturing frantically. You cannot impose your primitive morality on the entire galaxy. This is madness. You're barbarians. Nicole looked directly at the delegate and for the first time she smiled. It wasn't a warm smile. Yes, we're barbarians who protect our own. You should remember that. She turned slowly, making eye contact with delegates across the chamber. Every species in this room needs to understand something about humans. We don't negotiate when you take our children. We don't calculate acceptable losses. We don't weigh costs versus benefits. We simply come for you, and we don't stop until our people are home and everyone responsible is dealt with. Nicole paused, then delivered her final message. The Velik Syndicate thought we were weak because we're new to galactic politics. They thought we'd follow your rules and procedures. They were wrong. Don't make the same mistake they did. She walked out of the chamber while delegates were still shouting. Earth didn't need the Council's approval. They never had. Within a year, something remarkable happened across the galaxy. Every human taken in the original raid had been returned. But more than that, the entire galactic slave trade began to collapse. Species that had operated trafficking networks for centuries suddenly shut down their operations. It wasn't because of new laws or treaties. It was pure mathematics. Humans simply weren't worth the risk anymore. And if humans weren't safe to take, maybe other species would fight back too. Fear spread faster than any diplomatic accord ever could. On Mars, Jake Cooper stood on his apartment balcony, holding his daughter Beth while his wife Karen made dinner inside. Above them, Earth's new defense grid glowed softly, weapons platforms and patrol ships that now protected every human colony in the system. Beth still had nightmares sometimes. She'd wake up crying, calling for her father. But every time Jake was there to hold her and promise her she was safe. And it was true. She was safe. They all were. Dad, look. Beth pointed at a ship passing overhead, the Earth Defense Force insignia visible on its hull. That's right, sweetheart, Jake said softly. They're watching over us. Across the galaxy, species learned a fundamental truth about humanity. Touch one of us and you face all of us. Not with negotiations. Not with mercy. With everything we have. Captain Diana Pierce sat on the bridge of the Revenant, reading her new orders. Her ship would patrol the outer colonies, hunt down remaining traffickers, and ensure every species in the galaxy remembered Earth's promise. She smiled as her crew prepared for departure. The mission was clear: humanity never forgets. Humanity never stops. And the galaxy would never make that mistake again. As the Revenant disappeared into quantum fold space, heading toward the frontier worlds, one thing was certain: the hunt would never truly end. Because somewhere out there, someone might be foolish enough to test humanity again. And when they did, Earth would be ready.